Good afternoon and happy Friday to you. How are we doing on this June gloomy, grey, grim day? How are we all feeling? I'm a few people joining already, just going to wait for a few more people to join us. Today we're talking about values, which I will get into shortly. Hope that you are all doing okay and that you're doing well. Mixed weather here in London. It's much cooler this week, and I don't actually have too much news on the bird front, unfortunately. So the swans have left their nest. There's no babies to report. Not sure what happened. We can't actually see the nest. It's kind of round behind a docking where the boats dock, so we can't actually see it. We still see the swans around the dock, kind of swimming around, but no sign of any nesting or mating activity. So because we can't see the nest, we don't know whether or not. I remember a few years ago, we saw the sort of broken eggs on the nest, and so maybe a fox had got in, or not sure what's happened this year, but all of that build up and all the, the ducks and the geese, and then normally the supporting act to the main event, which is the swans, and a bit of an anticlimax, unfortunately. I think they look a bit sad, but I don't know, can a swan look sad? Maybe we'll have to wait until next year. So welcome to all of you that are joining us today. I'm interested to know how is your week going? How are we doing this week? How's the family? How's your business and your team? And what have you been working on? As you know, I was in the studio a couple of weeks ago to record the audio version of my book. And so this week the files came back, and I've been listening to them and reviewing them, and I just signed them off yesterday. So now they will go out to the distributor, they'll go off to Amazon, and I think we have to wait about 4 weeks, something like that. That's what I'm being told. And then the Audible version of my book will be available, which is really, really exciting. So I will keep you posted on that. I've also mentioned my funnel to you a few times, and some of you may actually have come through that funnel, some of you that are watching, and I know that a number of you have seen my Facebook ads and commented or clicked on them. So I know that some of you are aware of the funnel, and obviously I've been mentioning that to you as well. And several people actually have got in touch asking me if I would share what I've learned about building it. Now, as you know, I'm not a marketing person, and I don't pretend to be, but I have built a funnel that is now bringing clients through to me successfully. And I've been asked by quite a few people to share what I've learned. And so if you are a coach or a consultant, or you just generally want to know how to build an automated webinar funnel, do get in touch, because I am looking for some beta testers to test a new course that I'm going to be running over the next few weeks. So if that's something that interests you, if you want to learn about automated webinar funnels from somebody that's not a marketing expert, but a bit of a geek, and has put all this together and is now making it work, then do get in touch with me, and I will get you, I'll send you the details. So get in touch with me about that. What else has been happening this week, and what has been happening to you? This week I want to talk about values and standing up for what we believe in. It's been a week of absolutely seismic changes across the world, and as we've all seen on our TV screens, people are ignoring the social distancing rules because they know that there are even more important things to stand up for. And so I wanted to just say a few words. I wanted to add my voice and say a few words about this. I don't really think that this is a political issue. Clearly this is not a forum for politics. I think this absolutely transcends politics. For me it's about what it means to be a human being. And I actually think that anybody that has a platform of any kind needs to be standing up and making a stand. So this is my platform, and here I am today. So As a white person, I will never ever be able to understand what racism really is, what it feels like to be in danger from our fellow citizens, or actually even from the very people that are sworn to protect us. I will never ever understand what that feels like, and neither will any of you that are watching that are also white like me. I shared a post this week written by a man who twice a day he takes a walk with his daughter and his dog. There's nothing particularly noteworthy about that, but here's the thing. In the last 4 years, he has never, ever taken a walk by himself, not even one time. And he admits in this post that he probably never will. And that just absolutely cut me to the core. We've all been confined to our homes now for much of the last 11 weeks to protect ourselves and other people from this invisible killer, this virus that spreads, without rhyme, without reason. But imagine being afraid to go outside because you fear that your fellow citizens will be suspicious of you, will accuse you of a crime, will maybe even abuse or maybe even kill you. Can you even begin to imagine what that must be like? Can you even begin to comprehend it? Because I know that I certainly can't. And that's why that just really cut me to the core. And what I've been reading a lot, as I'm sure many of you have, and I'm coming to the conclusion that actually it's not enough to consider ourselves non-racist. I consider myself not to be a racist person. We actually need to be anti-racist. We actually need to be against racism. And we need to call out even the small things that we see around us. And I know that you all know what I'm talking about. Maybe friends and family making small comments that we just brush off, or maybe we're a bit embarrassed about, but we don't really say anything, we don't really want to make a fuss, and we just kind of let things go. And I believe that you all know what I'm talking about. We need to understand that a white woman calling the police to report a black man, knowing that the police will take her word for it, that he was harassing and threatening her, it's actually the same as the tragedy and travesty that befell George Floyd. If the police had caught that black man who simply asked the white woman to put her dog on a leash, as per the regulations of the park that they were both in, who can say what would have happened? Maybe it would have ended up in exactly the same result. Now, this is not my area of expertise. I'm a business coach. I don't know what we can do to make our society more equal and fairer for people of all colours and races. But I do know that we all need to try. And I don't think it's enough actually for me to say, well, I'm not a racist, so that's okay. I have to recognise what a privileged position I'm in, and I have to notice more than I do what is happening all around me, those things that are spoken and also those things that are left unsaid and unchallenged. I grew up actually in an area where there were very few non-white people. One of my friends at school was of Indian descent, and I don't remember seeing her any differently or treating her any differently than my other friends. But I also don't recall learning or speaking about racism either at home or at school. I just have no memory of that at all. And I think actually that's still the norm. Black children get taught about racism, but most white children don't, as far as I know. And I certainly didn't. As I say, I don't recall any conversations on that subject. One of the things that I absolutely love about London is that it's truly a multicultural city. There are so many different races, language and cultures, and you go on the tube and you see 50 different coloured faces, and you hear 50 different languages, and I love the fact that it's a truly international, multicultural city. But I have been reflecting on a time a few years ago when I was recruiting a lot of people for one of the teams that I was building in an investment bank just here in Canary Wharf. where I was working at the time. And the way that I still like to interview people is a short telephone interview first. I think it's much more efficient for both parties. You can get a sense of each other without the candidate having to travel, maybe for quite a long time to get to where you are, and then you feeling like you have to give them a whole hour of your time because they've made the effort to come in. It's much more efficient just to have a short conversation, so I would always do that and make it very clear to the person, this is just a quick conversation just for us to get a bit of a sense. I'm going to tell you a bit about the role, you can tell me a bit about you, and then we'll decide if we want to move forward. So I would always do that. And then decide who I wanted to take forward and bring in for a kind of proper face-to-face interview. And I still remember many of those conversations. I actually love interviewing, and I remember many of those conversations from that time a few years ago. And one of those conversations was with James. He was very smart, he was well educated, he was very well spoken, and he had a great attitude, and he had exactly the kind of experience and kind of knowledge that I was looking for in this particular role. And so I invited him to come in for a follow-up interview. And I remember when he walked into the room, and I was shocked and surprised that he was black. And then I was horrified at myself for being so surprised and so shocked. And I remember asking myself, what did I expect? Did I expect that every black person has some strong Caribbean or Nigerian accent, that only white people can be well-spoken and well-educated? I was absolutely horrified and shocked at myself, and it was actually a real eye-opener for me about racism. As I say, I've never ever considered myself to be a racist. I still don't. But that showed up for me, that I was surprised that a well-educated, well-spoken man called James could possibly be black when he showed up in that interview room to be interviewed by me. It had never even occurred to me up until then that parts of my subconscious were categorising people and making assumptions about people. And of course that's logical, and I know that that's what happens, but that was like a real visceral experience for me that really kind of shocked me to the core. And I've been thinking back to that time and actually trying to figure out how to be more conscious of what my unconscious is doing. In case you're wondering, I offered James the job, and he did a great job. He was one of the key members of my team, and I'm very happy that I did offer him the job. But as I say, I remember that interview really, really clearly, because I felt embarrassed actually that I was shocked. I mean, imagine that. It was quite a moment, and I wanted to share that with you because I wonder how many occasions those of you that are white have had that kind of example where you actually realise that what your brain is doing. And so when you really get into the heart of the matter, if Black lives don't matter, then how can we call ourselves human beings? There's a lot of nonsense out there that I've read, and I'm sure you have, about reverse racism, and lots of people are saying all lives matter, which of course they do, but that is completely and utterly not the point. So if you're watching this, then please think about the little things, because at their core, I believe they're actually just as bad as the big things. And if you're watching this and you're on the receiving end of any of those little things, please know that with every fibre of my being, and I'm just one person, I want to make sure that this community is a safe space where everybody feels welcome and supported. So what does all this have to do with values in business? So for me, it's all about what we stand for and what we believe in, and the kinds of businesses that we want to build. I actually believe that our politicians are no longer the people who are really leading us, and they're certainly not the leaders that we need for the future. It's actually entrepreneurs that are leading the way, solving the world's biggest problems and crossing national and cultural boundaries. We all know that a bad recession is coming, and we need to be the people who are stepping up and building businesses and creating jobs. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about supporting all you wonderful business owners of all shapes and sizes, all colours and creeds, to do the work that we're born to do. So each and every one of you, I want to support you on the journey, wherever you are, if you're just starting out or if you're several years in. We are the people that can make a difference in this world. Values and culture are often confused. So values really guide our decision making, and they give us a sense of importance and also what's right and what's wrong. Culture is a combination of business practices, processes. It's kind of the way that we do things. So they feed into each other, but they're not the same. And if you feel yourself having a disproportionate reaction to something that somebody else does or says, kind of a strong reaction where you say to yourself, oh, why did I react so strongly? It's probably because your values are being crossed. That's a good way to know when your values are being crossed. So a company's values, just like a human being's values, don't change that often. They're kind of uncompromising core principles that you as an individual live your life by. It's actually about how you see yourself and who you think you are. And for a company, it's really those core principles that the company is prepared to stand by and that the company is built on. Culture, on the other hand, is actually a constantly evolving landscape. It kind of sits on top of your values, and your culture is evolving as you bring new people in, as you change direction, as you introduce new products, even as you take new customers on board. Your culture will adapt to your business needs. It will also adapt to your environment, and also it will adapt to the demands of your customers, whereas your values are constant and at the core of the business that you're building. So things like poor communication, lack of team spirit, micromanagement, and they're all potential signs of a negative company culture, and they are all things that can be improved upon, and that's some of the things that I work with my clients on. If you've got increasing tension or also too much competition, also possibly a sign of not great culture in your business. If there's too much focus on just on the bottom line and short-term returns, they have been proven to contribute to a poor company culture. If your values aren't clear, or if they're not well communicated and understood by your team, then you do risk bringing in the wrong people. So if you find that you're regularly hiring people who then don't fit in and aren't kind of the right kinds of people and aren't fitting in with your ways of working, they don't get on with other team members, or maybe they behave in ways that you find unacceptable, then you need to spend some time focusing on defining those values in your business. Those values that are going to resonate with you and with your team. And if it feels like you and your team are just kind of going through the motions and nobody's heart is kind of really in it, then your values is a really good place to start turning things around. So, as we all know, people are tribal by nature, and I guess that's being reflected in what we're seeing in the world today. We do define ourselves, even if we don't realise, as I shared with you just a moment ago, even if we don't know that we're doing it, we do define ourselves in terms of our gender, our race, our age, our nationality, our religion, our sex, our sexuality, our beliefs, our opinions, etc. That's actually how we understand ourselves and how we understand other people. And generally we're actually drawn to those whom we have interests or people kind of in common, if you like, which is how this tribalism kind of forms. We also define ourselves by what we're not. And so we learn at a very young age as children, we learn about groups and cliques and gangs, and we learn how to fit in, but also how to stand out. And throughout history, actually not just in history, even today, millions of people have been slaughtered, if you like, in the name of the tribe. And today's politics shows us many things, but it also definitely shows us that tribalism is still alive and well, and what is happening right here, right now in our world is definitely showing us that tribalism is still very much the way that we humans behave and see ourselves. That sense of belonging is actually incredibly important to all of us, and who we work for is no exception, and who your teams work for, that's no exception. And people want to feel a sense of connection to their company. They want to feel a sense of connection to its mission, and particularly to its values and its people. Values really matter in business, that's what I'm trying to say. Every successful company has a set of values, and they assist your team in achieving the goals of the company. They're kind of the essence of the company's identity, and also explain why it does what it does. It's actually been claimed that a coherent and effective culture can generate as much as a 30% difference in performance when compared to a kind of culturally unremarkable competitor. And so your values are what will help guide all of the decisions that you make and the actions that you take in your business. And so it's important when you hire, manage and reward people that you do that in line with your values, and that you don't retain anybody that's acting against those values. And so where to start with this is what's known as the core human values. That's where you start figuring out what your values are as a business owner, as a human being, as a business owner, and then what the values of your business are. And depending on which piece of research or article you read, the core human values that we all hold dear are expressed a little bit differently. So, for example, Tony Robbins, for example, the great coach, he expresses them as certainty, variety, significance, love and connection, growth and contribution, as an example. And I did a lot of research on values as part of my book, and in a business with an eye, I suppose, to business owners, which is who I'm speaking to, I expressed the core human values as follows. So, number 1, to make a difference. Number 2, to discover and grow. Number 3, to engage and connect. Number 4, to be happy. And number 5, to be trusted and revered. Now, one of these is likely to be your core ideal, your core value. You may actually hold several of these values, but one of them is likely to be dominant for each and every one of you. You may actually have 2 that are very close, and maybe you find it difficult to decide. And what I would say is then you need to go with how you feel. So what do you feel is your core value? So for example, if you feel that both discover and grow and make a difference are important to you, then I would ask you to consider whether you're making a difference so that you can discover and grow, or whether you're discovering and growing in order to make a difference. And thinking about it like that will help you figure out which one is your core value. So, how do you embed your values into your business? So I have 3 simple steps. I like to keep things simple, even with such a weighty and important subject as values. So the first thing is to figure out what is your core human ideal. As the founder of your business, it's really at the heart of what you do and why. And so it's really important for you to get clear about what is really driving you. And number 2, then, if you have a team, then discuss with them. Even if you don't, discuss with the people that you are working with. As I've mentioned before, when I use that word team, I do use it quite loosely. Discuss it with your coach, with your advisor, with your suppliers. Discuss it with the people whose opinion matters to you. And with your team, discuss with your team what they believe should be at the heart of your business. So again, go through those core human values and say, as a business, which one of those are we really are we really building on? And think about your customers. What is the value that you give them, and therefore what values do you have in common with your customers? And that will help you define then how you want to do business and how you want to build your business. And then number 3, really important, once you've documented those values, your company values need to be embedded then in all of your processes. So you need to look at how you do what you do and ask yourself, are these values embedded in our processes? Every decision that you and your management team make and any members of your team should be in line with your values. If you're ever struggling to make a decision, go back to your values. That's the heart really of what you're doing. So for example, many companies actually recruit based on a values fit rather than a cultural fit. As I mentioned at the beginning, culture is actually something that evolves and grows. And so finding people that are fitting in with your current culture is actually not necessarily a sensible thing to do, because you're always trying to drive the business forward, and you want people that are coming with different backgrounds, different experience, different ways of looking at things, people that are wired differently. And so a values fit is actually a much smarter way to look at recruiting. And I certainly advocate and support that approach over a cultural fit, which is more likely to lead to yes men and women and people that just head down and get the job done, rather than what you want, which is people that are contributing and potentially challenging as well. So if people are not a good values fit, then they're actually likely to cause disruption and conflict in your organisation, which you definitely don't want. And it is important to recognise this and to take action. So no matter where the person comes from or what their experience is, if their values are not aligned to yours and to that of your business, you probably need to let them go. I always advise my clients not to hire too quickly, so don't hire in a panic or in a rush. And also, very importantly, don't fire too slowly. Especially when you have a small team, every new person has a big impact on that culture that you're trying to build. And even one person that's wrong for your team can have a really hugely negative impact on you and your business and your team and potentially your customers if their values aren't aligned with yours. So what do you think? What are your values and how embedded do you think they are in your business? Have you thought about defining them? Have you spoken to anybody else about what is that core thing at the heart of your business? What do you stand for and how does that show up in your business? Let me know what questions or comments that you have around values. Lots of people watching. So welcome to you all. I'm interested to know any comments or questions that you have around values or anything that I have shared today. I am going to close up today's live with 2 of my favourite quotes. The first is from the American author Charles Garfield, and he says that values provide perspective in the best of times and the worst, which I think is very relevant for right now where we are today. And Herb Kelleher, who was the former CEO of Southwest Airlines, has a great quote about culture. And he defines culture as culture is what people do when no one's looking. So let me know your thoughts and questions on this or any other topic, as always. Whatever you're doing this weekend and whoever you're doing it with, I wish you a very happy and peaceful time. And as always, if you want to talk, please reach out. You know where I am. Please take care, please stay safe, and please keep in touch. Bye for now.